Hi everyone, I'm in a property today in Bristol where we're doing a EICR check on a 22 bedroom HMO property. So we're going to be going room by room doing all the tests as well as all the communal areas inside and outside of the building, and I'm going to give you a little insight into exactly what goes on during the process. Right, now we're into one of the rooms. The first thing we're going to do is go around and have a good walk around and have a general feel of the property to see what sockets and lights they have in here, see how many circuits they've got. We come to the main consumer unit here where we take a look and see exactly what they've got. As you can see here, nothing's labelled up at all, so that'll be something that needs a bit of attention to it. So we're going to now identify what circuit's doing what, and we'll get this consumer unit labelled up exactly as it should be. Okay, right, so we've got the 20 off at the moment. Do you want the 32 off, yeah?
Yeah, the 20 is the lounge socket.
All right, that's the lounge socket. So this one, is that off?
Yeah.
That's the one. Kitchen sockets. We open up sockets and switches to have a general look to see how well things have been done. So you can see here, this is currently dead at the moment, and what we've got here is we've got conductors. We've got brown sleeving on to indicate they're live, which is a sign that somebody good's done it. We've got earths in a nice earth sleeve in there with a connector on them. What can happen is that they can have seen it where they don't bother putting the connector on, they just bend the earths over inside the box. So we're looking for sort of good workmanship. This place has all been rewired recently, so we're generally gonna just check out and make sure everything's been done properly. We now just open up a kitchen socket to see the quality of the wiring. You can see it's all dressed in nicely. I've just given the connections a little tweak just to make sure they're nice and tight, they're nice and firm in there. Cables have been stripped off nicely, earth sleeves are on. These sockets do have an earth terminal either end. They should be one wire. There's two earths here. One of these should be in this one and one should be in the other. Bit of a minor thing, however, it's something that is supposed to be done. For this, that wouldn't be a fail. It would just be something that we just note on the actual EICR, but it's certainly not a fail at all. Right, so what we're going to do, we've got all the power off here, so we're going to do, this is the kitchen ring main, so this is a ring main fused at 32 amps, so we're just going to make sure that basically there's two lives, two neutrals to earth, and what we're basically doing is making sure that as the name suggests, a ring main, or a ring final circuit should I say, that the cables go from this breaker here, it goes around the whole circuit and then comes back. That's the whole point of it being a ring. It goes around to all the sockets and then comes back. So we're just going to do a little test now just to prove that these cables are actually a continuous ring and there's no breaks in them anywhere. 0.35. 0.35. 0.51, brilliant. What we're doing now is we're doing the insulation resistance readings now. So we're going to put 500 volts through every circuit just to make sure there's no dead shorts between anything. To make sure, what we've done is we've checked the ring main now, so we know that there's no open circuits. We're now basically checking there's no dead shorts on the circuit either. What can happen when we're doing the insulation resistance reading is that if there are things still plugged in on the circuit that we haven't seen because they're behind furniture, it can actually give us a false reading and give us what looks like a short circuit on the system when there's actually not. So we're just going around now just double checking. We've already previously unplugged all the appliances, but we're just going to go around and make sure to see if there's anything else that was hiding that might have been plugged in. Let's have a little look at these lights. Let's see if these are fire rated. Yeah, they got the cans. Basically these are fire rated, so they've got a metal can sort of framing around them. So there's not just a hole that goes into the ceiling here, there is an actual, I don't know if you can see it, but there's an actual can. It's a bit dark in there, but there is a can in there, and in there's a special material in here as well. So if there ever was to be a fire, then instead of the fire ripping up through melting this bulb out and then ripping up through the hole and into the floor above, there's actually a special layer at the back there. So if it's a certain material, I don't know what the material is, but it's a certain material there, so that if there was ever to be a fire, then that material would soften and basically expand and seal all the holes, any little holes or anything that are up here, to make a full fire seal to stop the fire from penetrating up into the floor above. So now we're doing some earth testing now. So we go through each of the circuits, and what we're basically doing here is trying to get a reading, because basically in a lighting circuit, socket circuit, basically all circuits in most properties are going to have an earth wire in them, apart from some special scenarios. And that earth wire is really important to have. It doesn't stop the circuit from working. However, it's like a seatbelt in a car. You don't really need it until you need it. So it's one of those where it keeps you safe, it keeps the system safe, and the earth needs to be present. So just like in a car, you don't need the seatbelt unless there's an actual crash. So it's that same sort of thing. So we've just done a test here just to prove that there is actually an earth path here, so that we know that it's in the circuit and it's continuous. Because what can happen when you've got a number of lights and switches and things like that, it only takes one of these connections to break somewhere else on the circuit, and then that means that although there might be an earth wire here, there isn't actually an earth path coming to here, so it makes it basically useless. So we've just tested it. What reading did you get on that one?
1.04.
1.04. Lots of lights and circuits connections on this circuit, so yeah, you get a slightly higher reading at that point. But no, all is looking good. Just looking for the power supply for this 2-zone hob here. The wire goes straight through into that cupboard. Yeah, I think it's in this side. It's in here. Moment of truth, is he in there in the back somewhere? Yep. There he is. Brilliant. Time to do an earth reading from that socket now. .31. Good earth. Right, so we've done some dead earth testing, which means all the power's been off when we've been testing. So we're now doing some live testing now, just from the socket points. And the important thing about doing this is that by plugging into every single socket that we can get access to, not only are we checking that we've got an earth reading at the socket, but we're also checking that the polarity is correct. So that means that the wires are around the correct way, because if a socket's been wired the wrong way, it can still work depending on the formation of the cabling. However, it won't be working safely. And in some cases, they can really be working really unsafely. So by doing these live tests now, it basically makes sure that everything is correct with the wiring in terms of the right wires have gone into the right terminals, but it's also checking we've got a good earth path as well. So we've done the testing on the final circuits to make sure that they have an earth path. So what's really important now is that we have to check that from the consumer unit back to the mains position, back further on in the property, that there is a continuous earth path from this consumer unit back to the mains, which will then go back out into the road. This is really important because if you've got electrical continuity in the actual property to the consumer unit, but you don't have any continuity from the consumer unit going back, then it's as good as not having an earth for any of those circuits either. So this is really important that we've now checked the final circuits back to here, but now we're checking from here back to the mains position as well to make sure it's continuous right the way through. Now we've proven we got continuous earth right the way throughout the property. What we're now doing is we're now tripping out the RCDs. These RCDs are actually RCBOs, so they do the same function. But in a nutshell, what basically happens is we're putting a small amount of current through each of these breakers now to make sure that they do actually trip, so that when there is a fault scenario and the fault runs back through the system, that it will trip out at these breakers here. And we got the readings to make sure that they're within a certain amount of milliseconds to make sure that everything's okay. Now we're going around, now we've done all the final circuit testing, we're now going to be putting the circuits back together. So we've got the circuits back together and we're getting things plugged back in again. A massive major one to make sure you always do is make sure the fridge goes back on. Lights are on, we're good. This is more so from the consumer side of things. Last thing we want to do is leave this unplugged and it stays off for a long time. They might not be back until, they might be working a night shift here because we've got keys to come into this particular room. They might be in a night shift, not realise, and it could go right the way through to the next day. Things like fridges can then warm up, and then when they finally realise, they might plug it back in and basically could end up having a real problem with food which is defrosted from the freezer section and it's now being frozen again. So it's really important from our side of things that we're going around making sure everything's plugged back in, everything's functioning as it was, making sure boilers are turned back on. There isn't any in this property, but boilers turned on, cookers are on functioning so that people can carry on with their day to day.
Hello.
So that's a small insight into one of the rooms in this property. There's 22 of them. We've got the whole communal area to do as well, which is pretty massive. And yeah, there's many circuits like the lights, the fire alarm system, there's door entry system here, air conditioning, positive airflow units, all kinds of things that we need to test, as well as down at the mains as well. So yeah, there's separate cookers. There are communal areas like this one that have got a whole host of cookers in them, TVs, TV aerials, internet. We have to basically go through and check all the main supplies for all of those. So it's pretty involved, and hence the reason why it's going to take, EICRs generally do take some time if they're done properly. I always say that EICRs are a bit like going to the doctor. You don't want the doctor that you see that tells you to try cutting out some dairy products and see how you get on. You want the doctor that's going to give you all the treatments, the blood tests, the wee samples, you name it, all those types of things. You want the proper job done so that you know that you're safe and that you're okay and you're healthy. It's exactly the same with a property. There are cases where you can pay for an EICR and you get these companies claiming to get it done in a day, and it's a huge building. An EICR, if it's done properly, depending on the size of the building and how many circuits are in it, can really take some time if it's done properly. So on that note, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and yeah, please like and subscribe, and really love to hear your comments as well. So let me know your thoughts on whether you're a landlord, whether you're an electrician, or just a general homeowner, or anybody for that matter. I'd really love to hear your comments on what your thoughts are.